RamG Foundation, Mr. Vallath also holds the distinction of being one of the youngest people in the country to manage entire telecom operations for Airtel. But what was to follow in his life would eventually go on to define him for the person that he is today. At the age of 33, Mr. Vallath was struck by the autoimmune disease, an enemy so powerful that it takes out even the best amongst us. However, staying true to his professed love for PG Wodehouse classics, he saw humor even in that gloomy scenario and would often be cited as saying, "When the going gets tough, the tough get humorous," when asked to recollect those experiences.
Mr. Ram Gopal Vallath learned two things very early in life. One should never take oneself too seriously, and that no problem is unsolvable. This is probably why, in 2012, when he wrote his first book, Oops, the Mighty Gurgle, a funny, wacky sci-fi novel for young and old alike, he was typing the entire text using a voice-to-text conversion since his fingers had lost the ability to type.
All of this was done while he was lying in a hospital bed in Chicago, undergoing chemotherapy sessions. Yes, it is truly awe-inspiring. Man never made any material as resilient as the human spirit. Ladies and gentlemen, Samriddhi 2015 is now proud to present in front of you the best-selling author of From Ouch to Oops, who also incidentally happens to be a fan of interstellar travel, the man himself, Mr. Ram Gopal Vallath.
Can I take this in the mic? We're going to change the slides. You'll do that? Which one? This one. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Good morning. So I have a fractured toe, so I'm going to sort of hang on to this thing for support. This becomes too much, I might move there. You guys have made me feel extremely underdressed, by the way. I thought I'm going to Goa, all these guys are going to be in shorts and t-shirt. I have to be slightly better dressed, so I thought jeans and shirt is okay. I feel totally and completely undressed, okay? So forgive me if I'm going to stutter and stammer for some time. No, I'm okay, thanks. So I had the pleasure of covering Goa as a territory in my first job. That was back in 1993, before most of you were born. And it was the most amazing plum job anybody can find, you know. Goa used to be our dream place. And then to come to Goa and do work out here, I thought was the most amazing thing to happen. It's just after you hit Goa that you realize doing business in Goa is not as easy as chilling out in Goa. At the end of that 1 year when I was handling Goa, the blood in my alcohol stream became so low that I had to actually get out of Goa and go back to Bangalore. But it was an awesome experience. So lucky you guys for being here, and I think you are the most amazing campus I've ever seen in my life. So, great show. And thanks for the introduction. I don't know, who are the guys who introduced me? Thank you so much. That is the best introduction I've ever had in my life. So, thank you. And the fact that I did not write the introduction and you guys pulled it out yourself, thank you so much. A lot of great work done there. In terms of what I'm going to talk today, I'm going to talk about this theme of mine, which is life is full of ups and ups. And how do you make that happen? How do you ensure that life is full of ups and ups? Whatever you hit, whatever block you hit, how do you convert that into something positive? That's what I'm going to talk about. So I strongly believe that every downturn in life is the stepping stone for the next success. And it is downturns which actually teach us a lot of fundas in life. Every time you hit a downturn, you learn so much. For me, I've learned enough to write an encyclopedia today. I've had so many of those so-called downturns in my life. And the first downturn which happened to me, which is a very, very important downturn which happened to me, was at the age of 6. And at the age of 6, I was inspired to become an author because of a particular downturn. And what inspired me to become an author was a dog. So what happened is I was walking out of my house, and there was this Pomeranian dog which was very friendly. It jumped on top of me. And I was petrified of dogs at that time, so I gave him one uppercut. And the dog, on parting, gave me a nice bite. And there was a bit of flesh which came out. And I realized that this is not just war between RamG and the Pomeranian. This is a war between humanity and the canine. And I thought they were going to take over the world, and I had to do something quickly to stop these guys. And I went home and took the mightiest weapon known to mankind, which at that point in time was a pen. Today it is Facebook. But I went home and took my pen and I started writing. So my first short story came out when I was 6 years old. In that, the dog was chasing a cat and it slipped and it fell and it died. Quickly, I followed up with a second short story, which is the dog was chasing a bird, it climbed up the tree and it fell and it died. And then came the third story where the dog wanted to eat the fish and it went into the sea, it drowned and it died. Then I couldn't think of any more gory ways to kill the dog. So I thought, okay, the dog was chasing its tail, it went round and soon and it died. With this, with these 4 missiles unleashed at the dogs, I decided that I can rest in peace. The world is not going to be taken over by dogs, which proved right. After 25 years, you still don't have a dog as the head of any state. So, though you might not agree with that statement, but but most of the countries are still headed by human beings. So after that, but I gave up writing for a very, very, very long period of time. There was another downturn in life, so-called, which came to my rescue somewhere down the line. I studied in some of the smallest villages in Kerala. I was in this village called Moolamattam, which is in Idukki district, the most backward district in Kerala. And Moolamattam had one school. It was a government school. It was a Malayalam medium government school. And I had no option but to study in this Malayalam medium government school in my high school. And the pass percentage in most of your schools must have been 100%, I guess, right? In my school, it was 80%. And 80% was the fail percentage in the school. So I was in the top 20%, and I did pretty well in my academics because I was very focused on studies at home. But the advantage I had was that there was really nobody I could compare myself with in terms of academics. And I wanted to get into some of the engineering institutions, so I started studying for the entrance exams. The good thing was that I had nobody to compare myself with, and I had no idea where I stood on a scale of 1 to 10 vis-a-vis the competition across the country. So the only option available to me was to ensure that I crack every single problem I came across. And I would spend days sometimes on solving a single problem. I would take 4 days, 5 days, brooding over one problem, looking very depressed in life. My mother would nudge my father and say, hey, I think RamG has fallen in love, He's sitting there mooning over some girl. And I would be wondering, what is the value of X out here, But at the end of that period, and I became so clued in onto solving all these quanti problems, I was damn good at quant. And it was as if, God came and said, RamG, go forth and multiply. And I started multiplying. So at the end of that period, I became so good that I cracked all the entrance exams I wrote. And for IIT entrance exam, I got a 129th rank all India. And so I was on top of the world. Now, I had got into this awesome institute and I got into electronics in IIT Madras. So I landed up in IIT. And that's when the next downturn hit me. I had never spoken a sentence in English before that. And, I used to read tons and tons of stuff in English. I used to read Shakespeare when I was in the 9th grade. But to actually speak in English is a completely different matter. And how many Malayalis are out here? We Malayalis have a slightly distinct accent, right? And in IIT Madras, all the Malayalis used to be ragged for their accent. I had a very pronounced accent at that time. So I landed up in IIT. The only sentence I had spoken in English before that, actually I had spoken one sentence, which is when I sidled up to this girl and said, "Hey, I love you," okay, in my 11th grade. Now, since that was the first sentence I was speaking to her, it didn't work out too well, And she gave me such a dirty look that for the next 5 years, I didn't speak to any girls. But after this happened, so I firmly shut my mouth and never spoke in English when I went to IIT. Because I couldn't go and tell all the seniors, "I love you." That would have been a disaster. So I was repeatedly ragged. And I decided that there is one best thing I could do is that I could stick around with this another Malayali friend of mine. There were two advantages. His accent was worse than mine. So he would get ragged before I do every time. And that is one. Number two is that I could at least speak to him in Malayalam. So we guys from Kerala at that time used to believe that communism is the greatest thing in the world. And we Malayalis were all very strongly communists. And I had this belief that everybody else in the world is inferior. So at that time, Russia was communist. So I used to believe Lenin and Marx were the greatest people in the whole universe. Then the Russians and Malayalis together. And below that are all these English-speaking pigs. The Americans and British who are dregs of humanity. So that was my belief at that time. So I used to hide behind this superiority complex so that I don't have to speak to others. And I would pretend as if, I'm a Malayali. Bring me a Malayali, I'll speak to him. Otherwise, why should I speak to all these guys who speak English? And about 3 months went like that. And then a senior of mine caught hold of me once and said, "Hey, bugger, what's wrong with you? You are in this place which is so cosmopolitan. There's so many people from all over the country out here. And you want to learn nothing from the rest of the people? You just want to speak to your Malayali friend and sit around? Then why did you come out of Kerala?" That was a huge lesson for me. And I thought, wow, maybe he's right. I should give it a shot. And I actually had to push myself out of my comfort zone to start mixing around with the rest of the people. And in a couple of months' time, I realized that the rest of the people are also decent human beings like Malayalis. So I made great friends with so many people from all over the country. It was an amazing eye-opener for me. I realized one very big lesson in life, that if you push yourself outside your comfort zone, you will grow as a person. Because the kind of learning I got when I started mixing with people who are completely different from me was so much more. And the other thing that happens when you push yourself outside your comfort zone is that your confidence will grow substantially. So till today after that, every time I confront a situation which is difficult to handle, or every time I meet people who are different from me, I really push myself out of my comfort zone, get friendly with them. Today it's become a practice, I can't live with people who are like me. I want people who are different from me. So this respect for diversity, respect for different points of view, everything comes when you push yourself outside your comfort zone. I continued like that. Life was great. IIT was fantastic. So I made lots of friends. And the downside of making so many friends was the grades started sort of going slightly southward. So I started with 8.4 GPA in my first semester, which is damn good. And then it started looking like the GDP of India for the last 5 years. So from 8.4, the damn thing went to 8, 7.5, 7, 6.5, and finally it bottomed out at 5. And the other thing that happened was there was a direct correlation between my spirituality at that time and indirect correlation, sorry, between my spirituality and my grades. So as the grades tanked, I became more and more spiritual. You know, my favorite spirits were Old Monk Ram. And and there was this awesome thing they used to call bullet beer, which you get in Chennai. Okay? Bullet beer looks like beer. It tastes like beer. But I'm sure they had a bit of sulfuric acid in it, maybe a tad of rat poison. So you go and sit and take one shot of bullet beer and you get knocked out for life. Okay? So between these two, life is great. Very spiritually inclined I used to be. And at the end of 3 years, I realized that, oh my God, I will not be able to graduate in 4 years' time. You know, in India, we call graduation passing out. Passing out I used to do every night. Huh? Totally tuned and passing out every day. And graduating became incredibly difficult. So I looked at all the balconies in the hostel, which is the best place to jump through and end all this disaster in life. But that is a point in which I did the right thing in life. I went and spoke to my parents. You know, I hid nothing. I went and told them that I'm an idiot. My grades are like this. I need so many more credits to graduate. I don't think I'll be able to get so many credits in the next 1 year. So you will have to support me for 1 more year. And that is the wisest thing I have done. Because my parents were absolutely non-judgmental. They came to IIT, they stayed for 3 weeks. They went and my dad went and met some of the professors and told them that we are very middle-class people. Just because this guy is acting like an idiot doesn't mean he's a spoiled brat. He just lost his way. Please give him a second chance. And my life turned around after that. So in the last 2 semesters, I managed a 9+ GPA. The last 2 semesters were by the 5th year because I had to finally plug 1 year. But I finally graduated in 5 years' time. When I look back upon it now and see what I went through in terms of so much of depression and pangs, there are 2 lessons which come very strongly. Number 1 is that never lose focus of your goal in life. You can have all the fun you want, but just keep that focus in mind and keep coming back to that every once in a while and check whether you're on track or not. And it keeps happening in life. Huh? You can lose track of your ultimate goal in life and you keep going towards, like if Rambha and Tilottama are dancing, you go after all of them. You need to look at only Urvashi. You should not look after all these other girls. But the other lesson which I learned is that life is a long innings. At any point in time in life, you can turn your life around like that. And at 43, I did that. I completely reinvented my life at 43. So life is a really long innings. If you ever feel depressed about some small things which just not happen right, think about this, guys. Don't feel depressed. Just think of what you can do now to solve the problem. Anyway, I'll come back to that. So I finished this and I went and did my MBA in XLRI. Spirituality continued very well and it was nice, but I also was much more focused in life. So I completed my MBA from XLRI. I was very happy, got a couple of jobs, and my first job was Titan. And there are a couple of other big lessons I learned in life during my working days, which I think will be relevant for you guys. So in Titan, we had this levels for people. So management trainees used to get fitted at a level called L5. And people who are not management trainees, the graduates, they would come in at L3 and work their way up. So after a few years, they will become L5. And I was in the marketing team, and there was me, and there was another guy called Alok. I was in L5, Alok was in L4. And we were both handling product management. One day, the organization restructured, and we were put on a different floor, and new tables were allocated for us to sit. And I was shocked when I found that Alok Dube's table was 2 inches bigger than mine. Now I'm an L5 and he's a mere L4. How can he get a 2-inch larger table? So I went and cribbed to my boss. I said, no, this is not on. I need a bigger table. So my boss was very sweet. He said, okay. And he gave me another seat. And I moved on from there. I joined Compaq Computers later. When I joined Compaq, I was the regional manager for South. And we had 2 businesses, one consumer division, one is commercial desktop division. Consumer division had 3 people in the country, and commercial desktop division had 30 people in the country. And we both used to compete for our distributors' attention. We had the same distributors, and targets would come every month, and you have to finish your targets. And whoever gets an order in first from the distributor would be able to ship the material out first, and then the distributor usually runs out of money, so the later orders never get billed. So if you want to do your targets, you need to get your orders in first into the system. And it is entered into the computer system, right? So the orders have to come in and get entered in. And so I was in this nice set of tables. We had 6 tables for managers in that office. I was the only manager from consumer desktops. Our job was to sell these obscenely highly priced computers to poor, unsuspecting consumers. And the corporate guys, the commercial guys, their job was to sell. Hey, can you guys hear me? There's too much of rain happening. Everybody can hear me? Okay. The commercial desktop guys, their job was to sell obscenely high-priced commercial desktop to corporates. So they had 5 managers, and there was me as one manager in this row of 6 manager tables. And down the line, those guys went and recruited one more manager. So they restructured the office and shoved me into another corner of the office. So I lost my manager's table. And I was put next to a bunch of people who are outsourced employees. Not even direct employees of Compaq, but outsourced people. So it was a big come down in life, from wanting that 2-inch extra table to this particular incident. It was a big come down. But one good thing that has happened to me in life is that because of this background where I come from, this small village, etc., automatically I respect anybody I meet, whether it's a bus driver to my car driver to the maid at home to the CEO of the company. I give equal amount of respect to everybody. And very quickly, I got very friendly with all these outsourced employees, and I used to treat them as absolute equals, and they loved it. And that's when the so-called downturn of this table became the biggest advantage for me. Because the distributor would send in the order, commercial desktops and consumer desktop together. The order processing people would put in my orders first into the system. And every month, I would do my target 100%. And the other guys would miss their targets. So the only reason that it happened is because I used to treat everybody with equal amount of respect. And that's when I realized one huge lesson in professional life. The biggest ingredient for success is respect. And the other thing I realized is that you cannot demand respect. Respect doesn't come because of the size of your table. It doesn't come because of the size of your car or the size of your paycheck or your designation. Respect has to be earned. And a prerequisite, the basic condition for earning respect is to give respect. To give respect, you will get respect back. So I used to treat my distributors, salespeople, my outsourced employees, everybody with equal amount of respect. And how do you show respect in a professional situation? You need to be responsive to people. If you get an email, respond back immediately. If you get a phone call, pick up the damn phone. Speak to the person. If you miss the call, call back. These are very small, basic things you do. But the amount of difference it makes in your professional life is amazing. Remember this in your jobs. Be responsive. You will succeed in life. And in Compaq, in 2 years I was there, I got 4 salary hikes. So that is a big lesson which I learned, that respect has to be earned. And the other thing, obviously, is that every downturn can be converted to a stepping stone for success. I had a very successful career after that. By the time I was 34, and at 24 I started working. By the time I was 34, I had become the CEO of a telecom operation in India. I was the youngest guy in the country to become a CEO at that age. And I was on top of the world. I thought I had arrived in life. And I set myself a target. You know, I am a very target-driven guy. I always leave these milestones for myself. I said, by 45, I want to be the CEO of a global Fortune 500 company. That is my target. And I really started going after it. But usually, when you make all these grand plans for yourself, what you realize is that fate is not in agreement completely. And in my case, fate was laughing at me on the other side. And that time, when I became this younger CEO, I started finding a very strange physical disorder in my body. Every time I would pick up something like a pen or a spoon, my hand would start trembling. Every time I tried to walk up or down steps, I used to feel my body wobbling and my balance not being proper. So I went and met many doctors. None of them could figure out what is the problem. And I told myself, hey, I have to really attack this problem, because I knew that every problem has a solution. So I started working out. I would go to the gym and do 1.5 hours to 2 hours of workout. But by the end of that, I would feel completely exhausted and my body would be shivering. For the next 7 years, no doctor was able to diagnose the problem. This 7 years of complete uncertainty, 7 years in which my body slowly started deteriorating, 7 years in which it became difficult for me to use my fingers, 7 years in which it became difficult for me to climb up or down steps. And I would trip and fall every once in a while. And finally, at the age of 40, I had this fever. And the fever spiked the condition completely. So at the end of 2 days, I was unable to move my hand, both hands, both legs, and I was laid up. I couldn't even keep my eyes open. My eyelids would droop by itself, and I couldn't even keep them open. And I had no idea what is wrong with me. So I was wheeled to the hospital, and luckily that is when the doctors figured out what is the problem. So we all have this immune cells in the bloodstream, the white blood corpuscles. My immune system was attacking my own body. It's called an autoimmune condition. So the blood cells are full of these white blood corpuscles who are supposed to protect the body from enemies and germs. In my case, these little bastards were coming and attacking my own body. So my nerves were being attacked, both hands and legs, by my immune system. And the nerves have a sheathing called myelin. And the myelin was being destroyed, which meant that no electrical impulses could go from the brain through the nerves. And so muscles were not getting any messages from the brain. And over a period of time, the muscles were dying out. And by the time I had lost most of the muscles in my hands and legs. Luckily, the doctor then figured out what is the treatment, and he put me on this something called IVIG, which is intravenous immunoglobulin, it's called. So I was there in the bed, and they put about 32 bottles into my body through an IV. 6 days. The cost of the treatment was 6 lakhs. So at the end of 6 days, but I started feeling better. Got out of the hospital, I told myself, I'm really going to work on my body and get it back to shape. So I started exercising, I would go for walks, I started taking weights, and I started playing cricket with my kids. For the first time in 7 years, I could do that. And I went and bought pizza base and made pizza for them. I would run up the 9th floors to my office. And I thought, wow, now life has come back. At 45, I can still be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Well, fate had different plans again. So in 45 days, this entire condition came back. And it came back with a bang. It came back even worse than what it was. So that's when the doctor actually told me that this IVIG, the treatment that you had, does not last equally for everybody. It is not a permanent solution. For some people, it will last 6 months. For some people, it's 3 months. In my case, it was 45 days. So I had to put in another 6 lakhs into my body if I had to recover again. I didn't have that kind of money. So what the alternate was that the doctor would give me a small shot, which is 1/5 of that, but 1.2 lakhs, and add steroids on top of it. So I started having steroids. And steroids have extremely bad side effects. My dosage was 30 mg per day. It went to 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. And at the end of that period, I bloated up 15 kilos in some 6 months' time. And the other side effects of steroids is your eyesight starts fading up sometime because steroids deposit something in the lens. So I had a cataract operation for both the eyes. In spite of all that, my body was not recovering. So every 45 days, I had to take this small IVIG. I would go up slightly, then keep coming down, go up again, keep coming down. And life was hell. And I was holding a very, very tough job at that time. I was a director of operations for HP India. So I had two options. One is to sit and moan and groan about my condition. The other one was to take it head on. And very luckily, somewhere I decided that come what may, I'm not going to let this cheerful self which I am go away. So I told myself that if I walk into a room, I'll make sure that the people in that room are a little more cheerful because I'm there. If I walk into a group, I would make sure those people laugh at least once. And it has tremendous amount of positive feedback. When you're positive, the people around you are more positive. When they are more positive, you feel more motivated. So it's a positive feedback which builds on itself, instead of a negative, vicious cycle which you can get into. And that time when I took that decision to do that, I had to first push myself to do that. But that decision was, I think, amazingly helpful for me in future. Because I was training my mind to be positive. And this is what I used to look like in those days. So it was one of the toughest periods in my life, but I decided that I'm going to really, really be positive, come what may. So I would go home and spend 2 hours with my kids every day. And I would tell them wacky, funny science fiction stories, all kinds of weird stuff. And they would laugh, I would laugh, we would be happy. My condition kept deteriorating every week. I used to travel a lot in those days. And I would, let's say, go to Singapore or US or whatever. And the jet lag would impact the condition even more. So in the morning, I had a meeting at 8:30. I would have to get up at 5 o'clock because it would take me 90 minutes to put on these 6 buttons of the shirt. because my hand would be shaking so much. And if you guys have ever thought about this, putting on these 6 buttons is one of the toughest jobs, because you have to hold a small thing like a button in one hand, hold the lapel in the other hand, and ensure that the button is near the hole, push it in with your thumb, hold it with the other 2 fingers, pull it out, and then twist it free. For me, each of those was an incredibly difficult job, because my fingers did not have the strength, they didn't have the fine motor movements to do that. And every 30, so I would keep on trying. Every 30 seconds, I had to drop my hands because my biceps didn't have the strength to hold up my hands. So I would be sweating and desperately trying to put on these 6 buttons so that I don't become late for the meeting. Sometimes I had to lie on the bed and try to do that because I couldn't hold up my hands. But I made it a point that I took on every single job which is assigned to me and some more. Because the only way to keep positive in life is to be active. Actively seek out things to do and do them. And the satisfaction you get will be phenomenal. And the worst was when I had to go to the urinal, I couldn't pull down my zip because my fingers didn't have the strength. Sometimes I had to wait for 15 minutes in front of the urinal to find the damn zip. Many times I've been tempted to ask the next guy, hey dude, can you pull it down for me? But of course, there would have been gay director making passes in the urinal. It's unsuspecting urinators. So I decided not to do that. So time went like that. But one thing I told myself is that I knew that every problem has a solution. There's no problem which is unsolvable. So I would go and try and figure out solutions. So I would do yoga every day. I would try and walk very laboriously around my apartment complex. And finally, I found a solution in US where there was a clinical trial going on for this condition. And I enrolled for it. And myself and my wife went and stayed in Chicago for 3 months. The treatment was incredibly expensive. Our entire life saving went into that treatment. But there was a 80% probability of it reversing the condition. There was also a small probability of mortality. You know, the doctor was very clear. He said that you could die if you go through the treatment. But you know, that is a 2% probability. Every time I walk down the road in Bangalore and try to cross the road, it's 5% probability of mortality, you know. So this is very peaceful. But the difficult thing was when we were both going off to the US, I had to tell my kids that we are going and I'm going for a difficult treatment. And in the back of my mind, there was this thing that, what if I don't come back? So I wanted to tell the kids that it's a difficult treatment I'm going for. And my daughter was 13. She was a 13-year-old adult. You know, girls are usually extremely focused by that age in life. And my son was 10 years old. He was a baby. You know, you see in those early ages, girls are far smarter than boys. And men usually catch up by 99 or so, we catch up with the girls, you know. But, so my daughter started crying. And I had to catch a flight at 12 o'clock. And 8:30, my daughter started crying. And for the next 2 hours, she just kept crying. It was one of the most difficult, 2 hours in my life. I didn't want to leave her and go. But finally, there was no option. And we went to Chicago, stayed with 3 months. And that's when the treatment started, and it was an amazing treatment. What they do is they first take out what are called stem cells from your blood. Stem cells are the cells which create all other cells in the body. Blood has got blood stem cells, which create white blood corpuscles, red blood corpuscles, platelets, all that kind of stuff. And you can take it out using a bone marrow stem cell transplant. So they took out some 40 million of those and kept it in a nice bag and kept it aside. After that, they gave me chemo shots. So it was 7 days of chemo. Chemo is what is given for cancer patients, and it's like highly toxic. The reason it is effective is because it's very toxic and it kills the blood cells in your body. And for this particular condition, they also nicely, helpfully added a couple of other things, like there's a rat extract, there's a rabbit extract. So all this was pumped into my body over the next 7 days. And at the end of 7 days, my blood count became absolute zero. And then they put the stem cells back into the body. And the new stem cells started generating blood corpuscles which did not have the memory problem of the earlier ones. So these guys were not traitors. They were not attacking my body. And by the 8th and 9th day, I started feeling slightly better because chemo really brings you down, Is you feel like horribly screwed every day. But after that, I started feeling great. And I told myself that now I am going to set a target for myself to get better. So I knew that I would be in the hospital for another 6-7 days. I said, this day I'm going to walk one round around the hospital corridor. Tomorrow I'll walk 2 rounds. The day after I'll walk 3 rounds. The day after I'll walk 5 rounds. Like that I put a target for myself. Then I started walking around. And I had to walk with this big stand next to me, which was on wheels. And from that stand, there were 6 or 7 bottles connected to my bloodstream, to my jugular, through one big line. And the bottles would be like antibiotics and saline and rat and rabbit and chemo and stuff like that. So I would take all these buggers and go for a walk. And the first day was really tough because after chemo, even getting up is tough. So I pushed myself to do that 1 round and came back and exhausted, I lay down in my bed. Next day I got up and I did 2 rounds. Next day instead of 3 rounds, I did 4 rounds. Then instead of 5 rounds, I did 8 rounds. So I was beating the target which I had set for myself every day. I was feeling fantastic. Came back home. I got discharged and came back home. Then I took an Excel sheet and did this big targeting for myself. 27 exercises for 180 days. Each day, each exercise, I put a target. Each week, the target would go up. And then I started beating every target every day. So it is a phenomenal thing to do, Whenever I've realized one thing, when you have a big goal in mind, you should always break it down to these smaller steps. And ensure that you reach that step that day and celebrate. Feel fantastic about it. So for me, those 6 months were the most amazing 6 months in my life. I was just turning my life around completely. And in the beginning, for example, I couldn't lift this wrist used to flop down like this. I couldn't lift it at all. So I said the first week, every day, I would lift it 10 times. Next week, I would do it 20 times. Next week, 30 times. Next week, I will hold a pen in my hand and lift it 10 times. And 20 times, 30 times. Then 1 bottle of shampoo, 10 times, 20 times, 30 times. Half a kilo, 1 kilo, 2 kilo, 3 kilo. And walking, I used to walk 400 meters laboriously in the beginning. I said by end of 6 months, I have to walk 5 kilometers. And by the end of 6 months, I was walking 6 kilometers. And I was really coming back to shape. And that's when I started looking like the next dude, this handsome little dude out here. And I did a little bit of photoshopping, so. But the best thing that happened was none of these. When I was going through these difficult times in HP, at the height of my illness, when I couldn't even walk, and I used to carry a crutch to my office every day, and I would take on 110% of the work every day, because I used to push myself at those days. At the height of that, I got sacked from HP. I was told that I don't have a job anymore. So that was the most unfair thing that has ever hit me in life. And it took me 3 hours to digest that. My boss called up from Singapore, and she was a very good friend. The reason it was happening, because there was some unethical behavior which happened 3 levels below me. And I was, in fact, trying to investigate that and put everything in place. But since there was some involvement of an outside agency, they had to show strong action being taken. So they had to sack the senior-most person in that organization. So they had to sack me. And those 3 hours were rock bottom in terms of feeling, because you're feeling as if you've given 110% when your body is at 50%, your job, and then this is what you get in return. People hate unfairness, especially when it's towards yourself. But After 3 hours, I was back in action. After 3 hours, I called up my lawyers to find out if I can sue HP. They said no. I said, okay. Next best thing, I'm going to exit like a professional from the organization. So I spoke to my boss. I said, you guys know my condition. I can't get a job now. Nobody is going to give me a job in this condition. So I have my family to take care of it. So at least give me 3 months' time. So my boss really fought internally to ensure that I get that 3 months period. The 3 months was the best performance in my organization because I ensured that every single loophole was tied, every single target was achieved, and I delivered the best ever results in those 3 months. Not because I loved HP, but because you work with professionals in an organization. When you work with professionals, you have to be professional with everybody else. You need to give your 110% every time to every person around you. There were so many people depending on me to do my job, and I couldn't let them down. So after that, I couldn't find a job. So there was these huge bills that we had paid, the 80 lakhs, which is the treatment. And my kids had ambitions of going and studying abroad and stuff like that. My wife was working, which was a great thing, but there was this huge cash outflow problem, and I didn't have a job. But I had to reinvent myself. So when I was going through this chemo and rat and rabbit and all, I thought of this wacky idea to write a book. So I started writing my first book there. And I think this chemo and rat and rabbit was very similar to the old monk rum and bullet beer, So my brain was totally in a different state. And I wrote my first book, which is a completely wacky science fiction called Oops, the Mighty Gurgle. It's about a character from outer space in the future called Oops, who comes to visit Earth to save humanity from destruction. Because there is another planet with green pigs who want to destroy humanity. Why? Because human beings play Angry Birds and kill green pigs. So they want to destroy humanity. And then the story is about how Oops saves humanity. Once I finished this book and it got published and it became a bestseller for children, I was invited to schools to give talks. And I would go and deliver science workshops to the kids. And I would use characters from my book. The favorite for the kids was there was this species in a faraway planet. The planet was called Holy Butt. And the species was called ceribums. Their brains were not in their heads. It was slightly southward of the head, So when ceribums meet each other, they're not supposed to meet each other face to face. That's an ultimate insult. They have to meet each other back to back. So the kids would love these stories. And when I tell these stories, I would also add some stuff about what is a neutron star, how big is a galaxy, how many galaxies in the universe, what is genetic modification. So the kids would actually learn a lot of science by listening to all these weird stories. And then I was called to a corporate to talk. And I delivered my first ever motivational talk. And what I learned is that there's something I had learned on the way, which is, I think, something which people can use, is how you can remain positive. Am I running out of time? No, okay. How you can remain positive through the toughest of times. So I asked myself today, so today my target has changed completely. I don't want to be CEO of Fortune 500 company at 45 anymore. Number one, obviously I can't be now, because I'm already 47. Number two is, I've reinvented my life now completely. And there's something far more powerful which I'm doing, which is touching lives positively. So for me, the target today is that I want to touch 1 million lives positively. So I count the numbers I touch every day. Number of books sold, the number of blog posts read, number of people I touch in terms of talks, number of kids I go to and talk. I go to schools and address 600, 700 kids at a time. And the first 20 minutes they'll be laughing. The next 40 minutes they'll be focused and listening to what the hell is going on in life. At the end of it, I think they go back feeling that life is all about being positive. So I wonder what made me so positive in life. So this is the first book I wrote that is called Oops, the Mighty Gurgle. Anybody who likes funny books This is a book. You will not stop laughing for 200 pages. And then I wrote my second book. This is called From Ouch to Oops. So this book is all about being positive. It's my life story in a very, very humorous fashion. It's dedicated to all the protons in the universe who remain positive in spite of all the negativity whizzing around them. And this book became an instant bestseller. So today, I get called for talks at least 5 times a month. In fact, last night I was in Delhi. I was addressing something called Access Health International with our worldwide chairman was there. And he came and hugged me after the presentation, saying, thank you so much for doing this. And he wants to now put me onto various organizations across the world to help me achieve my target. So I actually caught a flight at 10:45 from Delhi, came to Bombay at 1 o'clock, took the 2:30 flight from Bombay, reached at 3:40 here so that I can talk to you guys. So life is awesome. There's so much I can do in life. And every minute of my life, I fill with positive things to do. So I write books, I give talks, I go to schools and give workshops. I am the editor of a science magazine with RamG University. Science is my passion. I want to be the most prolific science writer in the world. So I learn science online. There's Coursera, Udacity, online platforms where fantastic courses are there on science for beginners. So I learned that, and so that I can write books. I'm the co-founder of a startup company in Bangalore. It's a technology company. I'm heading publishing for RamG University as a consultant. So I have no minute to spare for negativity. And that is, I think, the simple, biggest thing I have learned in life. That you have no control over circumstances around you. I think it's a bunch of random variables. You know, people say, you do good things will happen to you. Bullshit. If you do good things, you will feel good. That is why you should do good things. Not because you expect good things to happen to you. That doesn't happen. It can happen, it may not happen. It's a bunch of random variables. So you have no control over circumstances around you, but you have absolute control over how you react to circumstances. And you can tell yourself that I'm going to be bitching and moaning and groaning about this, or you can say, hey, I'm going to step out and hit a sixer. And every time a downturn happened in my life, I've stepped out and hit a sixer. And it becomes a practice after some time. You know, so the next 5 minutes, I'm going to teach you the most powerful lesson you've ever learned in your life. The most important lesson after potty training. Okay. So I'm going to make you guys positive in life if you do what I tell you to do. In life, there are 2 types of people, the 2 extremes. This side, you have people who are grateful for everything that has happened in life. And this side, you have people who have this entitlement mentality. That is, whatever you get, I deserve it, yeah? I should get more. Who is happy? The grateful guys. Why? Because every moment of your life, you're always feeling happy that something is happening to you, something good is happening to you. You're always feeling thankful to the rest of the world for that. And for me, somewhere down the line, I push myself to that corner. That place where I feel ridiculously grateful for everything that has happened to me. So I feel so grateful that I had the money to go for the treatment, which really reversed my condition substantially. I feel grateful that I have this wonderful wife who was there to support me through the whole thing. She was an incredible woman. You know, she would walk with me every step of the way when I was doing my walks. And she would walk with me and she would listen to my footsteps. Because she knew the moment my foot was misplaced and I would trip, that sound she could identify. And she would hold my hand. I'm so glad that I'm so lucky that I have somebody like that with me in life. I'm so lucky I have fantastic kids. I'm so lucky that I have this crazy brain which helps me find solutions. I'm lucky that I have hands and legs. So I thank God every day. I'm not a very God-fearing or godly person. So I thank whatever there is every day for me being like this. But if you're on the other side, and it's okay to be on the other side because human beings are built to look at negatives. Why? Because 10,000 years back, we were deep in the forest. And every sound you had to be alert, and every sound you had to be suspicious of. Otherwise, you die. But today, we need to push ourselves out of that and to at least neutral, if not this side. Now, how do you do that? And let me tell you that funda. The basic theory in earlier days used to be that if you work hard, you become successful. And if you're successful, you'll make money and you'll be happy. That is the basic theory, right? Actually, that's not true. It's completely the other way around. How it works is, you first need to be happy in life. If you're happy in life, that itself is a success. What are we doing all this work and everything for? There's only one aim in life finally, to be happy. So if you're happy, you're successful. And if you're successful, you will automatically work hard. You'll be productive. People around you will be looking up to you, helping you, etc. if you're happy. People like to hang out with people who are positive. They don't like negative people. And the people who will support you will support you if you are positive. So I can give you the statistics. Happy people are 31% more productive at work than cribbing and bitching people. Happy people are 37% more successful in sales than cribbers. Happy people are 19% more likely as doctors to diagnose a disease than unhappy people. So how do you make yourself happy? Remember these 5 steps. What I'm trying to do here is to rewire your brain from looking at negatives to always looking at positives. And brain can be rewired. The synapses of your brain can be rewired to become positive. How do you do that? You have to train your mind to constantly seek out good things in life. So every day, think of 3 things that you're grateful for in life. Think of it, soak it in. Think of that feeling and feel happy. I'm running out of time? Okay, 2 minutes. Yeah. Soak it in. And every day you have to come up with 3 new things. The other thing is, write down in the last 24 hours something good that has happened to you. By doing these 2, you are training your mind to look for the positive. Do one random act of kindness every day and feel great and soak in that feeling. Exercise for 40 minutes every day. Meditate for 10 minutes every day. You do these 5 things, you will be happy in life and you'll be successful. And that's why today I find myself the happiest person I've ever seen. My condition has come back the last 6 months. I have a feeling that in the next 3-4 years I might be on a wheelchair. But for me, that doesn't matter. I take every moment as it is, I maximize that moment. And that's what happiness is about. So, I just want to leave you with the last slide. It's about the rules that I have kept for myself in life. One is, always take on a little more than that is expected of you. You fill your life with positive things to do, you'll be happy. Number 2 is, the buck always stops with you. You are responsible for your success. And you can make your life or break it. Always be the provider of cheer. I have already told you why. Never look at what could have been. And thank God every day for all the great things that you have. Or thank whatever powers are for the great things that you have. So I want to leave you with the last one poem, which is very, very one of my favorites. It's called the Invictus. The Invictus means invincible. It talks about your spirit within you, which is unconquerable. And I'm just going to read the last 2 lines of the poem. It says, I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Remember that. Thank you. Thank you. From my side, I would be honored and grateful if you guys take time to read my book. It's also available on display today. You can buy it if you want. But it is a message which is really helped me so much. There's so many people out there who reach out to me saying that they're happy that they've read the book, they've found new meaning in life. So try and read it. It will help my cause. It will help you I think. And spread the word around. Make other people around you happy. Thank you so much.
We would like to thank Mr. Ram Vallath for his insightful take on life, laced with, of course, humor. Sir, it's been an absolute honor and truly enriching experience listening to you. On behalf of the GIM family, I request Michelle to present Mr. Vallath with a token of appreciation. Just three announcements that need to be made. First would be that all of you are requested to please stay within the MPH because Dakshata is going to start in 10 minutes time. Secondly, Ursa has a stall outside, so if any of you want to check it out, you are most welcome to go out. And the third is Sir's book from Oops to Ouch is also available outside. So if anyone is interested, you are most welcome to go out.